He thought he had it all under control. The legal team, the courtroom strategy, the carefully rehearsed statements. But everything shifted the moment a familiar figure walked into the courtroom. It wasn't a prosecutor. It wasn't a witness. It was Ben Chew, the same lawyer who led Johnny Depp's stunning courtroom comeback against Amber Heard. And now, he was here. Not as Diddy's lawyer, but as a strategic observer, a courtroom consultant, a bomb that sent shockwaves through an already volatile trial. Diddy, known to the world as a music mogul and cultural icon, wasn't just facing accusations anymore. He was facing them under the harshest spotlight imaginable, and the courtroom just became a battlefield he didn't expect to fight on. Ben Chew's appearance sent a clear message. This wasn't just another celebrity case. This was serious. This was personal. This was about control, power, and a truth that could no longer be buried. Whispers filled the courtroom. Reporters scrambled for angles. Diddy's legal team huddled in whispers behind their laptops. No one saw this coming, and no one was ready for what came next. Because this trial, it wasn't just about guilt or innocence. It was about exposing a system, a culture, and maybe even a legacy built on fear and manipulation. The stakes had never been higher, and the man once known for chart-topping hits was now known for something darker, something much harder to escape. And this was just the beginning. As the courtroom doors opened and Ben Chew stepped inside, the air changed. This wasn't a small-time case anymore. It was national news, a spectacle that could define reputations for years to come. Chew didn't need to say a word. His presence said everything. The man who helped Johnny Depp beat a tidal wave of public backlash had now entered Diddy's domain, but not on his side. He came at the request of the court to offer expertise on celebrity trials, how they work, how jurors think, and how public image collides with evidence. But to Diddy and his team, it felt like a chess piece moved without their consent. According to inside sources, Diddy had no idea Chew would be involved. The moment he recognized him, Diddy's expression changed. His shoulders tensed. His hands clenched the edge of the table just a little tighter. Behind closed doors, the reaction was even more intense. He allegedly flipped out, snapping at his lawyers, demanding answers. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" was the reported outburst. His defense team scrambled, knowing the optics of Chew's presence could quietly sway a jury before arguments even began. If jurors remembered Depp's win, and if they saw Chew as a symbol of truth or justice, it could be a psychological advantage for the prosecution. Even if unintended, the prosecution didn't object. Why would they? Ben Chew wasn't here to testify, but his shadow loomed large, and that shadow carried memories of another man, also accused, also on the brink, who walked out of court victorious. For Diddy, the message was clear. If the court was willing to bring in someone like Ben Chew, then the judge was preparing for war. More than 160 potential jurors were brought in. All of them were asked questions. Lots of them. Some were dismissed immediately. Too biased, too opinionated, too close to the case. Others, however, stayed, and what they revealed shook the courtroom. One woman openly admitted she had been assaulted decades ago. Another confessed to once being arrested for stealing a wand from Harry Potter's world at Universal Studios. A man said he didn't like Diddy, flat out. But all of them claimed they could be fair, neutral, impartial. And for now, that was enough. The courtroom felt more like an interrogation chamber. Jurors were grilled on where they got their news, how they felt about celebrity culture, whether they believed someone could be guilty before proven. One by one, their names were called. Some crumbled under the pressure. Some stood tall. But all were being watched, not just by lawyers, but by private investigators tracking their digital footprints. So far, 19 jurors had made it through. The goal was 45. Once that number was reached, both sides would begin using their strikes to remove jurors without explanation. But the clock was ticking. The judge made it clear they wanted the final panel soon, maybe even by the end of the week. For Diddy, this jury was already his worst nightmare. A mix of teachers, social workers, artists, and factory workers, not the starstruck fans he might have hoped for. Some had seen the infamous hotel video. One even called it damning. That juror was dismissed. But others who knew of the video remained. And so, behind the courtroom walls, a quiet battle was brewing, not with evidence, not with arguments, but with the people who would decide the rest of his life. The surveillance footage from 2016 had already done its damage. In the video, Diddy is seen knocking his then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura to the ground, then kicking her, then dragging her through the hallway of a Los Angeles hotel. It aired on CNN. It went viral, and now it had followed him into the courtroom like a ghost he couldn't exorcise. One potential juror admitted they'd seen the video. When the judge asked for their thoughts, they didn't hesitate. "It's damning." That was all they said. And just like that, they were dismissed. But for those who stayed, the video still lingered. The judge warned that the case would include graphic images, explicit language, and disturbing testimony. Jurors would have to confront confront it all and still stay fair. That video wasn't just a problem for Diddy's image, it was a foundational blow to his defense. His lawyers scrambled to control the narrative. They insisted the footage showed a toxic moment in a volatile relationship. They said it didn't prove trafficking, abuse, or coercion. The judge disagreed. "What's love got to do with kicking someone?" she asked. The courtroom went still. Diddy's team now faced a near impossible task: reframe the story, distract the jury, question Cassie's credibility. But it all came back to one thing: that video. The prosecution planned to play it again and again, until it wasn't just an image, it was a memory. Because no matter what Diddy said, that one clip told a story no one could unsee. Publicly, he tried to keep it together: sharp suits, polite nods, occasional smiles. But behind the scenes, it was chaos. Sources close to the courtroom described Diddy as a man unraveling. He reportedly snapped at staff, pushed back on legal advice, even asked for frequent breaks during sessions, telling the judge he was feeling nervous. That statement alone, "Sorry, Your Honor, I'm a little nervous today," became a headline. This wasn't the Diddy the world knew, not the confident mogul who ran empires and held the music world in his palm. This was a man realizing he wasn't in control anymore, and it wasn't just nerves. Insiders claimed he was furious, that no one warned him about Ben Chu. That kind of surprise, in a courtroom this serious, felt like betrayal. Whether or not Chu was a threat didn't matter. In Diddy's mind, his presence was a power play, and he wasn't ready for it. Reporters began noticing the shift. His posture sagged, his eyes stayed down, the swagger was gone. What made it worse was the knowledge that every second he sat there, someone on the jury was watching him, judging him, not just his words, but his reactions, his tone, his size, his silences. For a man used to cameras, this was a different kind of spotlight. One he couldn't direct, one he couldn't dim. Both legal teams weren't just sitting in court, they were moving behind the scenes, fast. Every juror's background was under a microscope. Investigators were digging through social media, hunting for old tweets, Facebook posts, even LinkedIn profiles. In a trial like this, the smallest bias could unravel everything, so lawyers were looking for it anywhere they could. One juror was dismissed after the court discovered they worked for HBO, the same network that had just aired a scathing documentary on Diddy. Another had ties to a criminal justice nonprofit. That one was allowed to stay, though the prosecution raised an eyebrow. Everyone involved knew this wasn't just about evidence, it was about emotion, about who jurors trusted, and that meant every whisper, every scroll, every online comment mattered. Jury consultants were working overtime, profiling personality types, matching political leanings, even calculating how media consumption might affect sympathy. The defense wanted men, younger, less emotionally reactive. The prosecution looked for empathy, people who believed survivors, who wouldn't buy the toxic love narrative. Diddy himself was reportedly involved. He would nod or shake his head when certain jurors walked in. It gave him a sliver of control in a process where he had almost none. But as the list grew shorter, the fear grew louder, because even the perfect jury couldn't unsee what the world had already seen. The accusations weren't just rumors, they were vivid, graphic, and horrifying. According to court documents, Diddy prosecutors claim he used magic mushrooms, ketamine, and fear to control everything. Some women said they were blackmailed afterward, their actions recorded and held against them. One allegation said he held Cassie over a balcony during a fight. Another claimed he used arson to intimidate a woman into silence. The most chilling? That the 2016 hotel incident, the one caught on tape, was the moment Cassie tried to escape. Not just Diddy, but a room filled with darkness, a male sex worker allegedly still inside, hidden cameras possibly running. The prosecution called it a pattern, not a one-off, and Cassie's lawsuit, that was just the beginning. 11 more women had since come forward, and yet Diddy denied it all. He said the relationships were consensual, that what happened was part of a lifestyle, not a crime. But jurors were hearing another story, one filled with bruises, leaked texts, and years of silence, and the more they heard, the harder it became to stay neutral. In a shaky video posted to social media, Diddy apologized. "My behavior on that video is inexcusable," he said. "I take full responsibility." Wasn't enough. Public reaction was swift and brutal. Celebrities distanced themselves. Brands went quiet. Former associates began to speak out. Rapper Chopper claimed he had seen things that were uncomfortable uncomfortable, things that didn't sit right. He said the parties were wild, that everyone knew not to speak afterward. Whatever happens in here, stays in here, he recalled being told. One former MTV cameraman even accused Diddy of making an unwanted advance. He said it happened in Diddy's office, that he quit the next day and never looked back. The defense tried to push back. They framed the video as a single bad moment, said the rest of Diddy's relationships were built on consent, that the footage was real, yes, but it didn't prove trafficking. The judge wasn't convinced. Neither were many watching, because even without the full story, the images spoke for themselves, and now, so did the victims. Cassie's lawsuit was settled in less than 24 hours, but it lit a match. 11 more lawsuits followed, each with its own horror, each with its own pain. Diddy denied them all, but the tide had turned. Prosecutors built their case brick by brick. They had the footage, they had the witnesses, they had the timeline. What they needed now was the jury, and they were close. The strikes were beginning, both sides picking their final 12. The defense, led by Mark Agnifilo, a lawyer known for taking on extreme, high-profile clients, was preparing for war. They would argue love, consent, redemption. The prosecution would argue pain, control, evidence. The courtroom was set, the cameras were ready, and the man once celebrated for his music was about to face the biggest reckoning of his life.